Hey everybody, this is Becca. Thanks for watching my channel, Becca Town Sims. Today I'm showing you guys a house that's kind of special to me. This is Orchard House. And this house is the house that Louisa May Alcott lived in when she wrote Little Women, and it's basically the house that Little Women is set in. If you've seen any of the adaptations, they usually might use, I don't know, pictures of the house to build the movie versions because they look very similar. So I used pictures of the real house. I used pictures from the movies. There's like one in the 90s with Winona Ryder and a young, very hot Christian Bale. And then there's the most recent one, the Greta Gerwig one. They did a lot of research with the house too. So I kind of combined those plus my imagination from reading the books because like I loved these books. These books raised me, okay? So it's kind of a combination of those things. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I know about the house. So the original part, the main part's from 1600s. The Alcott family moved there. Oh God, and they were so interesting. I'm going to tell you guys about them too. They moved there and they rolled over a tenant house and kind of joined it to the back of this. So it's actually two houses put together. Now, I've never been. You can visit. It's in Concord, Massachusetts. I've never been. So I kind of just like guessed at the floor plan and did my own thing with my own imagination because this is going to be for the Little Women Challenge, which I have written and decided that I'm going to do. Yes, I invented my own challenge based on my love of like historical literature. And I'm going to play that soon, and you guys will see that, and I'll tell you more about it later. What I want to tell you about now is actually about the Alcott family, because like I said, they were really interesting people. So the dad, his name was Amos Bronson, and he was basically like a philosopher, and he had terrible luck, and he was awful with money. And the mom, her name was Abigail May. She was from this genteel, upper class, like Boston famous family. And this guy, Amos Bronson, he taught a lot. He started his own schools, and he was this radical transcendentalist thinker. So if you don't know about transcendentalism yet, it's like this progressive, romantic, like nature-oriented thing where you connect to God through like the natural world, and nature is good, and societal institutions are bad and corrupt. So he was a transcendentalist. He hung out with all these famous people. He hung out with Ralph Waldo Emerson. He hung out with Henry David Thoreau. He hung out with Nathaniel Hawthorne. So your boy had like all these like intellectual thinkers, all these transcendentalists nearby. And he had this school, and his future wife went to go work there, and she hooked up with him. Her family didn't love it, but they got engaged, they got married, and this guy couldn't hold on to money, like I said, so his school failed. I think they actually went through a couple of schools, just like financially precarious all the time. And this guy, Amos Bronson, believed that the purest form of knowledge was from like little kids. So he would ask some weird questions and write down their answers. So, and he talked to them about things that like the parents thought was inappropriate. Like he would ask them things about religion, and he'd ask them things about like, where do you guys think babies come from? And like listen to what the kids told him because he was fascinated by it. And the parents were like, nah man, that's not cool. So yeah, his school got canceled, and he got real depressed, and his friend Ralph Waldo Emerson was like, hey, Amos Bronson, why don't you go meet your fan club like in England, because like he was in the United States, he was around Boston, he had, you know, written a lot, and he like spoke and did all of his philosophizing, and these people in England thought he was cool even while he was like wrecking his finances back home. So Ralph Waldo was like, go over to England, my boy, meet your fan club, that'll cheer you up, and I'm sure your wife will appreciate it. So Amos Bronson hopped on over to England. The guy he actually went to see had like named a school after him, but that guy was dead. He had died before Amos had even left the United States, but like the postal service, you know, was slacking back then, so he had no idea. So he showed up, the guy was dead, but he still met some other supporters and fans of his, and he met this one guy whose name was Charles Lane. And there's this other story I heard where Ralph Waldo Emerson was like, look, I love you, Amos Bronson, but like you are a mess, and so if you meet these people in England and they want to come back home with you, you got to tell them, you got to show them this letter from me. And he wrote him this letter, and the letter was like, Amos Bronson Alcott is my friend, he's a chill dude, but he like money burns a hole through his pocket. Everything he touches ends in disaster. Love ya, Ralph Waldo Emerson, or whatever. Show them the letter because they need to know that you're a hot mess, even though you're very charming and very convincing. So presumably he showed them the letter, and the guys were still like, yeah, cool, let's go back to the States. They came over with him, and they wanted to start what they called New Eden. And basically it was like a commune, y'all. It was like, let's get some families, let's live together, and let's embrace the pure transcendentalist philosophy and like live in alignment with that philosophy. So they all move in together and they decide they're gonna all be vegan. They're not gonna wear any animal products, including like wool, and this is New England, so it gets like super cold here, okay? No leather. They only wear linen. They don't even wear cotton because it's picked by slaves and they were abolitionists. And they lived together, and Abigail got tired of it for a while. She left, took Louisa with her, but eventually came back, and they bought a new house. They bought this place called Fruitlands together, but they didn't quite have enough money, so Abigail got her brother to like be the guarantor. So this place has got a ton of farmland because they think that it's the highest good to be self-sufficient and independent and grow your own food and not buy anything, but they're farming in a completely vegan way. So this is the 1800s, fam. We ain't got electricity. They're not using animals to pull the plows. They're having to do everything by hand, and these guys were not farmers. They were writers, and they were philosophers, and they were teachers. So they didn't really spend that much time farming, and the fact that they were vegan meant that the only food they were really eating was a bunch of fruit, and they weren't even eating that many vegetables because they didn't like vegetables because like vegetables grew in the ground, and so they were like had like a dirty nature. So they were barely eating. And then these guys went off. They went like on a lecture tour and left right at harvest season. And so when winter came, the mom, Abigail, was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. They barely had anything to eat. She was tired of it. And so she convinced her brother to quit paying for the house when they couldn't make the mortgage. So then the experiment ended and Fruitlands was no more. Your boy Amos Bronson got real depressed again, but he wanted to keep his family because Abigail was just like totally not having it at this point. So then Ralph Waldo Emerson, being the like nice guy that he was, helped them buy this house, Orchard House. And this is where Louisa May Alcott was like, yo, I am so tired of being poor. So your girl really became a hustler. She did anything she could that she thought she could make some money at. She was a writer. She was a teacher. She was a nurse in the Civil War. She actually did her Civil War nursing in Virginia right after Fredericksburg happened, and so she saw like a lot of really terrible injuries, but by all accounts she actually like liked nursing. She wrote a bunch of like trashy stuff. That's what she liked to write. And actually there's this story where she wanted to be a writer and she showed it to an editor that she knew because her family knew all of these like writers and thinkers, so she knew an editor, and he read her story, which by all accounts was a terrible story, by the way. He read it and he was like, Louisa, this sucks. Stick to teaching or something else because like writing is not your thing. And she was real obstinate, so she was like, nah, I'm gonna still be a writer. So she kept writing. She got really good at it. It was actually her Civil War memoirs that made her kind of famous. So she published those, and then her editor at some point was like, hey, write a book for kids. She did not want to. The editor then like went to her dad. Now her dad was notoriously a terrible writer. He was such a bad writer that somebody had actually written a poem about what a terrible writer he was. And so her editor like went to her dad eventually because Louisa was like dragging her feet and not wanting to write basically a kid's book, and was like to her dad, hey, Amos Bronson, like, you know, if Louisa publishes this book and it does well, like people might want you to publish a book too. And he was like, what? So then he started harassing Louisa to write this kid's book. And what she wrote was Little Women. And she couldn't think of what to write. So she basically wrote about some of her own experiences, her and her sisters. So it's all like really based in her own life. It's fictionalized, of course. But like her sister May was a really good painter who studied in Europe. She was one of the few women to be featured in like some salons and expositions, and she copied Turner paintings for museums. she was like quite good. She had a sister, Elizabeth, who died really young, and then she had another sister who kind of broke her heart by getting married. And so that's where the stories of Little Women come from. And a lot of it happens at this house, Orchard House, that you guys see here. Like I told you from the beginning, it's not really accurate. It's kind of like my own fictionalized portrayal. So I get 2 rooms. There's one for Amy and Beth, got a lot of paintings up, and then there's a slightly more serious one for Meg and Joe. And then instead of a parent's bedroom, because I ain't gonna play with no parents, I built the attic and put like the cool rafters and stuff in. So this is the build. It's on the gallery. It's called Orchard House if you like it. My name on the gallery is Beckatown Sims. You can also find me on Instagram. It's Beckatown Sims. And I hope you guys enjoyed this speed build. If you want to hear more from me, if you want to learn some history stuff, let me know. Leave me a comment, subscribe to my channel, make me happy, my babies. And most importantly, check out my Little Women challenge when I put that up on here. So I hope to see you guys again. I hope you liked it, and thank you for watching.